A woman can forget every word you say, but she will never forget the 3 words that make her imagine you. You know exactly what I mean. You try to talk to a woman you like, you play it polite, you stay in your lane, and somehow you still end up invisible. She smiles at your effort, but her mind never lingers on you. Her interest rises for a moment, then fades. Her replies slow down. Her attention drifts. And you sit there wondering why nothing you say ever sticks, why you can never stay in her thoughts the way she stays in yours. Here is the truth most men never hear. Women are not moved by polite conversation. They are moved by feeling, by imagination, by the small moments that touch their unconscious, not their logic. Men talk to impress. Women remember what makes them feel. And right now, every message you send is landing in the rational part of her brain, not the part that creates craving. I am here to wake you up, not to comfort you. In this video, I will show you the 3 key words that quietly anchor you into her emotional world. Words that create a scene. Words that build tension without trying. Words that make her think of you long after the conversation ends. If you are ready to stop being forgettable, subscribe. Let's get into it. Number 1. Words that ignite her desire. Let me tell you something real, my friend. A woman does not remember the polite words you say. She remembers the words that make her feel something in her body. Desire is not logical, it is emotional. And if you want a woman to think about you non-stop, your words have to carry weight, imagery, emotion, and presence. Most men talk to women like they are filling out a form. Safe, predictable, boring, and then they wonder why nothing ever sticks. Take Daniel, 52, a real estate investor from Arizona. He had been casually talking with Melissa, 46, a marketing consultant. Everything he said sounded correct on paper. Good morning. How was your day? What are your plans this weekend? But nothing created spark. Nothing made him stand out. She answered politely, but she never initiated. She never lingered. She never replayed anything, he said. One night, frustrated, Daniel told me, I feel like I'm texting a wall. And I told him why. Because he was speaking to her conscious mind, not her unconscious one. The conscious mind deals with logic. The unconscious mind deals with imagination, emotion, desire. And that is the part of her you want to reach. So I told him to try something different. Instead of asking, how's your day going, I told him to send, I just pictured you laughing at something, and it made my day better. 11 words. But those 11 words hit her unconscious like a match. They created a picture. They created an emotion. They created a moment she could feel. And suddenly Melissa responded differently. Longer messages, softer energy, more curiosity. Why? Because desire responds to emotional imagery, not polite conversation. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life, and you will call it fate." Most men never learn how to speak to the unconscious. They think attention equals attraction. It does not. Impact equals attraction. And impact comes from words that create emotional resonance. When your words make her imagine something, you become unforgettable. You become a feeling, not a sentence. Women remember feelings. Another example. Instead of saying, that dress looks nice, say, the way that dress fits you tells me you know exactly what you're doing. That is not crude. It is confident. It acknowledges her intention, and it creates tension without crossing any line. Or instead of saying, you're fun to talk to, try saying, you have this energy that pulls me in before I even realize it. Again, imagery, emotion, impact. These kinds of lines are not tricks. They are emotional anchors. They bypass her rational filters and land directly where desire lives. And the moment a woman associates you with a specific feeling, she starts replaying you, not because she chooses to, but because her unconscious keeps returning to the emotional hit you gave her. This is what men miss. It is not about being poetic. It is about being vivid, specific, confident. You do not need to say much. You just need to say the right thing at the right moment, in the right tone. If this clicked for you, drop a comment saying, "I speak to her." Stick with me, because the next part reveals the hidden power behind emotional language and why it works every time. Number 2. Language that pulls her in. My friend, if you want a woman to think about you long after the conversation ends, you must understand something simple. Women do not fall for words. They fall for the feeling those words create. A woman is pulled in not by logic, but by emotional gravity. And the language you use either creates that pull or kills it before it begins. Most men think communication is about information. They text to update, to check in, to fill silence. But women do not respond to information. They respond to emotional texture. They respond to tone. They respond to words that paint a picture instead of giving a report. If your language feels flat, predictable, or overly polite, it will never pull her in. It will barely get her attention. A stoic understanding actually brings clarity here. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you speak, you are not just sending words. You are dyeing her emotional state with the color of your presence. A weak shade makes no impression. A vivid one stays with her. This is why emotional language works. It reaches her unconscious. Her unconscious stores images, sensations, and emotional associations. So when you speak in a way that taps into those systems, she feels you rather than evaluates you, and that changes everything. For example, instead of saying, "I had a long day," you could say, "Today drained me, but thinking about your energy shifts something in me." Notice the difference. One is data. The other is emotional resonance. One stays in her rational mind. The other lives in the part of her that starts to imagine how she affects you. Women want to feel like their presence moves you, not overwhelms you. They want to feel like your world expands, not collapses. Emotional language creates that pattern without neediness and without pressure. Another aspect of language that pulls her in is novelty. The brain wakes up when something breaks the pattern. When you speak in a way she does not hear from other men, you stand out instantly. Not through effort, but through contrast. If every man says, "How was your day?" and you say, "Something about you tells me today had a moment worth hearing," you shift her mind into curiosity. You create an opening. But emotional language requires discipline, not desperation. You are not drowning her in compliments or trying to be poetic. You are choosing words that carry intention. You are creating an atmosphere, not begging for attention. This is where Stoicism aligns perfectly. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." A man who understands the weight of his words speaks in a way that commands presence. A man who rushes to fill silence speaks in a way that weakens it. The real power of emotional language is that it lets her feel something she cannot ignore. When a woman starts replaying your words, she is actually replaying the feeling those words triggered, and that feeling becomes the hook. If this is making sense, drop a comment saying, "I speak with intention." Stay with me, because the next part reveals the phrase that breaks her pattern and makes her focus on you instantly. Number 3. The phrase that breaks her resistance. Let me tell you something a lot of men never realize, my friend. A woman's resistance is not about you. Most of the time it is about her protecting her own image, her comfort, her rhythm, or her fear of choosing wrong. Women do not collapse their guard because a man is nice. They let it fall when something he says breaks through the predictable pattern she is used to. One phrase can do that if it hits the right emotional nerve. Take Michael, a 54-year-old financial analyst from Ohio. He had been talking casually with Erin, 49, a physical therapist. On the surface she seemed polite, friendly, even warm. But every time he tried to move things forward, she kept a safe distance. Not rejecting him, not encouraging him, just maintaining the middle. That middle is where most men die, because they keep pushing logically, hoping resistance will eventually melt. One evening, after a long day, Michael told her, "You're easy to talk to." She laughed politely and changed the subject. Nothing happened. Later, I asked him what he really wanted to say. He admitted, "I feel like you hold back around me, but I didn't want to scare her off." And that was the problem. He was hiding the very thing that could create a shift. So I told him to send something different. Not needy, not aggressive, not poetic, just real. He said to her, "You know there's a part of you that wants to open up with me, and you fight it." When Erin read that, everything changed. She froze for a moment. Then she replied, "What makes you say that? Here's why that phrase works. It breaks her internal pattern. It names the tension she feels without shaming her for it. It moves the conversation from surface-level safety to emotional truth. When you speak to what she is doing rather than what she is saying, you bypass her defenses. You show awareness, you show presence, and presence is attractive. Women are not afraid of a bold man. They are afraid of a man who does not understand them. That phrase tells her that you do. Resistance lives in the conscious mind. Desire lives in the unconscious. When you speak to the unconscious, resistance weakens because it has nothing to hold on to. Erin did not respond because the line was clever. She responded because it exposed the truth she thought she was hiding, and she felt seen in a way that did not threaten her. That is why her next message was warmer, longer, more open. Another variation of this phrase is, "I can feel when you pull back and when you lean in." Women never hear this from men because most men have no awareness. When you speak with awareness, she feels the shift instantly. Awareness is masculine. Awareness is grounding. Awareness melts resistance because it tells her she cannot manipulate you or hide behind politeness. This is not about calling her out. It is about calling out the moment. When you describe the emotional reality between you, she steps into that reality. She becomes more conscious of how she shows up with you, and that makes her more willing to open the door. If this resonates with you, comment, "I break the pattern." Stick with me, because the next part reveals how to speak in a way her body feels before her mind catches up. Number 4. Talking in a way her body feels. My friend, most men talk to women with their minds. They try to convince, explain, impress, or over-communicate. And that is exactly why they run into resistance. A woman does not feel you through logic. She feels you through tone, pacing, presence, and the emotional space you create when you speak. If your words stay in the realm of thought, she stays guarded. But when your tone drops into a calm, grounded, masculine rhythm, her resistance softens without her even realizing it. Women are not reacting to the sentences you say. They are reacting to the state you speak from. When you talk from tension, she feels tension. When you talk from need, she feels pressure. When you talk from calm strength, she feels safe. And safety is where desire begins. A Stoic once said, "According to nature, your words should be honest and your tone should be calm." That line holds more power in relationships than most men understand. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is command. Calmness tells her you are not shaken by her moods, her delays, her tests, or her defenses. Calmness communicates that you live from your own center, not from her approval. And a woman cannot resist a man who lives from his center. Talking in a way she feels starts with slowing down, not dragging your words but dropping the pressure. When you speak with ease, she senses confidence. Confidence shifts the dynamic instantly. Women pick up on that shift faster than they process your meaning. For example, instead of rushing to respond or filling silence, you take a breath and deliver your words with intention. You let them land. You give her mind time to feel your presence. That spacing alone creates an emotional pull because it signals you are not desperate for her reaction. Another key element is subtlety. When a woman detects intensity too early, her instinct is to protect herself. But when your tone is subtle, warm and controlled, you become intriguing instead of overwhelming. You activate curiosity rather than defense. Curiosity is the doorway to desire. Think of your voice as creating atmosphere. Your words are the content, but your tone is the environment she steps into. A man who speaks too fast or too eagerly creates a mental environment of noise. A man who speaks with calm certainty creates an environment of intimacy. And intimacy is where her guard lowers without effort. You also need to talk in a way that suggests direction without forcing it. When you sound like a man who knows where he is going, a woman relaxes. She may not show it, but internally her body responds. Women open around men who lead without demanding. This is why tone matters more than the exact phrase. A simple statement like, "I like the way you carry yourself," delivered calmly, creates more pull than a paragraph of excited compliments. And this is what most men never learn. Resistance is not something you break, it is something you bypass. When your tone speaks to her body, her mind stops fighting you. If you want to learn the deeper Stoic techniques behind this, consider joining the membership. That is where I teach the full framework on masculine presence and emotional influence. Subscribe if you have not already, my friend. The next part goes deeper into why she replays your messages long after you stop talking. Number 5. Why she replays your messages at night. My friend, if you have ever wondered why a woman reads your message once during the day and then reads it again late at night, you are not imagining things. Nighttime changes everything for her. During the day, she is in motion. She is managing work responsibility and expectation. But when the world quiets, when the lights dim, and her mind finally slows down, that is when your words start to echo differently. That is when she replays the messages that made her feel something. Let me give you a real example. David, 55, a Navy veteran from Florida, had been talking to Renee, 50, a school counselor. During the day, Renee kept things clipped and practical. Short replies, a busy tone, nothing flirtatious. But at night, she would reappear. She would open old messages, respond with depth, ask real questions, and even reference lines David had forgotten he sent. He was confused. He thought she was uninterested. But she wasn't. She simply didn't have emotional bandwidth during the day. Women replay messages at night because nighttime activates the emotional mind rather than the functional mind. The unconscious becomes stronger when distractions fade. That is why a single line that barely registered at noon can hit her like a warm pulse at 11 p.m. David learned this when he sent Renee a simple message one evening. Something about the way you carry yourself stayed with me today. During the day, she responded with, "Haha, you're funny." But at night, she reopened the chat and wrote, "What did you mean by that?" A harmless line became a seed, and that seed grew in the quiet. This is where most men get it wrong. They think women replay long messages, dramatic confessions, or poetic paragraphs. No. Women replay the messages that awaken a feeling they do not fully understand yet. The unconscious loves mystery. It obsesses over incomplete emotional moments. When you give a woman a message that contains warmth, imagery, or calm masculine intrigue, her mind holds onto it the way fingers hold onto fabric. It lingers, it breathes, and when she is alone at night, she presses play again. There is a Stoic idea that fits perfectly here. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." At night her thoughts slow down enough to let your emotional color show. If your messages were flat, she feels nothing. But if your message carried tone, presence, or a hint of tension, that color stains the moment. Women are emotional replayers. They go back to whatever made them feel seen, understood, or desired in a subtle way. That is why a simple line like, "You crossed my mind earlier, but I'm not sure why," hits harder than any compliment. It gives her something to solve. It gives her emotional curiosity, and curiosity is the fuel of desire. David told me, "I don't understand why she reads my message 3 times. I told him, because the right words become a mirror. At night she looks into that mirror. If this hits something in you, drop a comment saying, "I create the replay." Stay with me, because the next part will show you the line that plants you in her mind all day without needing to chase her. Number 6. The line that plants you in her mind. My friend, every man wants to know the one line that makes a woman think about him long after the conversation ends. Not because he begged for attention, not because he overwhelmed her with compliments, but because his words slipped past her defenses and rooted themselves in the part of her mind she cannot shut off. And here is the truth: that line is never dramatic. It is never poetic. It is never desperate. It is simple, symbolic, and delivered with calm, masculine presence. When a woman thinks about you repeatedly, it is because your words created an emotional image she keeps returning to. The line that plants you in her mind is the one that awakens her imagination without telling her what to feel. You give her a spark, and she unconsciously builds the fire. This is why the phrase "you and me" works so powerfully. It is not just language, it is a symbol. It places the two of you inside the same frame, even if only for a moment. When you say, "You and me would get into trouble together," or "You and me should explore that place sometime," you are not making a request. You are creating a mental picture that includes the two of you moving together through the world. A woman remembers the scenes. A man paints more than the sentences he speaks. And here is where Stoic philosophy aligns with psychology. Epictetus said, "First, learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." Most men speak before thinking. Stoic men think before speaking. And powerful men understand the emotional effect their words create. When you say, "you and me," you are not describing the present. You are inviting her unconscious into a possibility. You are suggesting a dynamic, a partnership, a subtle closeness. The message is not, "Please spend time with me." The message is, "I see a world where we fit." The difference is enormous. Women do not respond to pressure. They respond to possibility. Possibility feels light, safe, exciting, and emotionally charged. It is a soft invitation that activates curiosity rather than defense. But the key is how you say it. If you sound needy, it falls flat. If you sound unsure, it feels awkward. But if you say it calmly, with a grounded tone, as if it is the most natural thing in the world, her mind accepts the image before she can filter it. She begins to imagine it. She begins to imagine you. That imagination is what plants you in her mind. Think about how her unconscious works. It does not store facts. It stores symbols. It stores associations. It stores emotional moments. When you give her a phrase that combines warmth, subtle tension, and a shared frame, she assigns meaning to it based on how she already feels around you. And if she is even slightly drawn to you, that meaning grows quickly. "You and me" is powerful because it does not define anything. It only hints. It only suggests. And suggestion is the language of desire. This is why the line works consistently. It is safe enough to laugh at, but intimate enough to feel. It is playful enough to deny, but real enough to consider. And once she considers it, even for a second, you are in her mind. If this opened something for you, drop a comment saying, "I plant the image." Stay tuned, because the next part reveals the exact moment her imagination starts pulling you closer. Number 7. The moment her imagination grabs you. My friend, desire does not begin when a woman looks at you. It begins when her imagination picks you up and starts running ahead of her. That moment is subtle. It is quiet. It is internal. But once it happens, you stop being just another man in her day and become a presence her mind wants to revisit. Women do not fall for logic. They fall for the scenes their imagination creates. And when you trigger the right moment, she starts filling in the blanks with her own desire. Let me give you a real example. Thomas, 57, a project manager from Colorado, had been talking with Nina, 53, a Pilates instructor. Their conversations were friendly, but neutral, nothing bold, nothing romantic. Until one afternoon, Thomas said a simple line, "You have this calm fire in you." He did not explain it. He did not follow up with a compliment. He just said it and let it sit. Later that night, Nina reread the line 3 times. She even screenshotted it. Why? Because her imagination latched onto the phrase, calm fire. It made her ask herself, what does he see in me? It made her picture herself through his eyes. And once a woman begins imagining herself in your frame, you become emotionally significant. You become a mirror she wants to look into again. This is the moment men never see. They think attraction comes from the perfect joke, the perfect compliment, the perfect strategy. But attraction begins when you give her a small spark that her imagination turns into a flame. A spark is not a paragraph. It is not a confession. It is one moment that opens a door inside her. Women's imagination activates when 3 things happen. First, your words create imagery instead of information. Second, your tone carries intention without pressure. Third, your presence feels grounded enough that she trusts the feeling that rises. Trust is crucial. A woman does not let her imagination run with a man who feels chaotic, but she will let it run with a man whose energy feels secure, certain, and slow-burning. In Thomas's case, he didn't say anything sexual. He didn't need to. Calm fire is evocative enough. It suggests warmth, intensity, and restraint all at once. Her mind filled in the rest. And that is how desire actually forms, not because of what you say, but because of what she imagines between the words. The unconscious loves incomplete images. It wants to finish them. That is why vague, emotionally rich lines are more powerful than literal ones. When you say, "Something about you stays with me," her mind starts asking, what part? What does he mean? Why does he feel that way? Those questions are hooks. Curiosity is the first stage of attraction. Once her imagination grabs you, she starts replaying moments, tones, looks, and messages in her mind. She attaches meaning to things you barely noticed. She begins to wonder how you would act in other situations. She begins to picture what the 2 of you would be like together. Fantasy is not delusion. It is desire in motion. Thomas told me I didn't think that line mattered. But it mattered because it let her fill in the silence with her own interest. A woman's imagination is always stronger than your strategy. You just have to give it the right spark. If this opened your eyes, comment, "I spark her mind." Stick with me, because the next part shows you how to use your tone to create irresistible tension without saying anything explicit. Number 8. How your tone creates sexual tension. My friend, every man thinks women fall for what he says, but the truth is far more subtle. Women fall for how he says it. A man's tone carries more power than his words, because tone hits her body before her mind. Tone goes straight to the unconscious, and the unconscious is where sexual tension is born. When your tone shifts, her breathing shifts, her awareness shifts, her emotional sensitivity rises without her permission. Most men speak too fast, too loud, too eager, or too light-hearted. Their tone signals anxiety or boyish excitement. And women do not feel sexual tension with boys. They feel it with men. A woman wants to hear steadiness in your voice, weight in your delivery, and a kind of calm certainty that suggests you do not need her attention, but you enjoy the connection. This is where Stoicism becomes surprisingly relevant. Seneca wrote, "The greatest power is calm," and that applies directly to attraction. Calmness in your tone tells her you are not easily shaken. You do not chase. You do not scramble. You do not lose your center. When a man speaks from a grounded place, a woman's nervous system relaxes even as her desire grows. She feels safe enough to let tension rise. Sexual tension is not created by intensity. It is created by restraint. It is the subtle suggestion that you could say more but you choose not to. You could push harder but you hold back. Your tone gives her space to imagine the rest. And imagination is always more powerful than explicit intention. Here is the key: your tone must slow down before your words do. When your tone drops into a slower rhythm, she feels the change immediately. The pause between your words matters. The softness of your breath matters. The warmth without neediness matters. When you speak like you are in control of the moment instead of reacting to it, she leans in. Another powerful element is contrast. If your tone is steady and calm, most of the time, a slight shift in warmth or depth becomes noticeable. It hits her harder. Women are highly responsive to emotional micro-shifts. A small drop in tone can feel like a pull. A slight emphasis on a single word can feel like an invitation. You are not forcing tension. You are allowing it. Think of your tone as atmosphere. Your words are what she hears, but your tone is what she feels. When your tone is low, slow, and emotionally anchored, you create an atmosphere around her. She is not just listening to you. She is stepping into your emotional world. And in that world, she begins to experience herself differently. That is the hidden source of desire, how she feels when she interacts with you. Stoic practice teaches men to speak only from intention, not impulse. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your speech be sound, not noisy." In attraction, sound means deliberate. It means controlled. It means you speak with purpose rather than filling space with noise. Women feel that difference immediately. A masculine tone does not demand. It suggests, it invites, it hints. And a hint is far more seductive than a declaration. When your tone carries quiet confidence, she becomes attentive. She listens more closely. She waits for the next word. That waiting is where sexual tension lives. If this resonates with you, comment "I speak" with presence. And stay with me, because the next part reveals the emotional trigger that makes you unforgettable in her mind. Number 9. The trigger that makes you unforgettable. My friend, let me tell you something most men never understand. A woman does not remember you because of your looks, your confidence, or how charming you think you are. She remembers you because of one very specific trigger, a moment, a feeling, an emotional shift inside her body that she did not choose and cannot ignore. Once you activate that trigger, you become unforgettable. Not just interesting, not just attractive, unforgettable. And this trigger usually shows up in the simplest, quietest moment. A moment where you say something that reflects her in a way she rarely hears from anyone. Let me show you how this works in real life. Mark, 54, from Michigan, had been getting to know Denise, 51, a high school counselor. They had easy conversations, a good rhythm, nothing dramatic. But one evening, right as their chat was ending, Mark said something he didn't think twice about. "You bring a steady kind of warmth that sticks with you after you leave." He didn't follow up with a compliment. He didn't try to explain himself. He didn't turn it into flirting. He just said it in a calm, grounded tone and let it land. That night, Denise reread the message twice. The next morning, she thought about it while making coffee. Later that week, she brought it up again out of nowhere. Why? Because that one line created an emotional imprint. It linked her presence to a feeling he experienced. It wasn't about admiration. It wasn't about beauty. It wasn't about need. It was about impact. Women remember the men who reveal the impact they experience, not the admiration they offer. Here is why this trigger is so powerful. A woman spends her day taking care of everyone else's emotions. Her kids, her co-workers, her responsibilities, even her friends, but rarely does someone reflect something meaningful about her back to her. When you offer that reflection in a slow, masculine tone, without pressure or expectation, her unconscious locks onto it. It says, "Pay attention. This man sees something in you that you rarely see in yourself." That is the moment you become unforgettable. It is not the words themselves, it is the meaning she attaches to them. When you give her a subtle emotional mirror, she begins replaying the moment in her mind. Not because she wants to, but because her nervous system keeps returning to the feeling. And here is the secret. Most men miss the trigger. Has to be calm, grounded, and incomplete. You cannot spell it out. You cannot explain it. You cannot push. You must allow her imagination to participate. When Mark said steady warmth, he gave her an image without fully defining it. That space invited Denise to fill in her own meaning. That is why she remembered it. Women do not crave clarity. They crave emotional significance. And the man who gives them that significance becomes a reference point in their mind. Every future interaction with another man gets measured against the feeling you gave her. That is when you become unforgettable. If this makes sense to you, drop a comment saying, "I leave a mark." And stay with me, because the next part shows you the 3 words that make her think about you non-stop. Number 10. The 3 words that make her want you. My friend, every man wants to know the magic phrase. The one thing he can say that doesn't sound needy, doesn't sound forced, doesn't sound scripted, yet still makes a woman feel that subtle spark in her chest. The truth is, it is never the words themselves that create desire. It is the emotional frame they come from. Still, there are 3 words that consistently pull women closer because they bypass logic and speak directly to her imagination. Those 3 words are, "I get you," not "I love you," not "I want you," not "I need you." Those words put pressure on her. They demand something. They create expectation. "I get you" does the opposite. It removes pressure. It removes resistance. It creates understanding. And understanding is the emotional gateway to desire. Women crave connection more than compliments. They want to feel seen more than they want to feel chased. And "I get you" hits that exact place. It tells her you understand her energy, her personality, her emotional rhythm, and the way she moves through the world. It tells her you notice the subtleties other men overlook. But the real power in these 3 words is not in the line itself. It is in what they imply. "I get you" tells her, you do not have to perform with me. You do not have to pretend with me. You do not have to hide with me. You do not have to explain yourself to me. Most men think attraction grows from boldness, but often it grows the fastest from relief. When a woman feels emotionally understood, her guard lowers. And when her guard lowers, attraction rises naturally. Think about how rare this is in her world. Most men try to impress her. Other men try to convince her. Some men try to decode her. But very few men show her that she is already understood. When a woman hears, "I get you," said calmly, simply, and without any agenda, she feels something shift. It hits her body first. Her breath changes. Her shoulders loosen. Her tone softens. Her eyes linger a little longer. This is because "I get you" taps into something primal, the desire to be emotionally met by a man who is grounded enough to see her clearly. This phrase also works because it is incomplete. It does not specify what you get about her. That emptiness invites her imagination to join the conversation. She begins filling in her own meaning. She begins wondering what you see in her. She begins replaying your tone, your timing, your confidence. And once a woman starts imagining what you meant, she starts wanting more from you. That is how desire forms, not from clarity, but from curiosity. But here is what most men miss. You cannot use this phrase as a tactic. If your tone is insecure or overeager, you break the frame. These words require calm, masculine presence. They require emotional steadiness. They require the same energy the Stoics lived, by nothing forced, nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. When you say, "I get you," you are speaking from acceptance, not desire. And ironically, that is what creates desire in her. Women want to be understood by the men they are drawn to, and they become drawn to the men who understand them. These 3 words stay in her mind because they change how she feels about herself when she talks to you. You are no longer a man she is evaluating. You are a man she can relax with. And a woman always wants more of the man she can relax with. That is why I Get You works. Simple, clean, powerful, and unforgettable. We just broke down exactly how women form desire through imagination, tone, emotional triggers, and the 3 words that stay in her mind long after you stop talking. If you apply what you learned today, you won't chase attention anymore. You'll create presence, tension, and the kind of impact she can't shake off. If you want to go deeper and learn how to use these tools in real situations, consider joining the membership. That's where I teach the full system, step by step. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next lesson. Thanks for watching, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow.